Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have a long list of things I want to talk to you about today.
Oh, does it include...
It didn't, but now it does.
Does it include llamas running through the city?
It does. It has that to do with that. I want to talk about Llama-gate. #Llama-gate.
Oh, I love Arizona.
Right? So what do you think? What was that all about? Big llamas.
I don't. It's just that was just crazy, and it's clearly not. I mean, Sun City is. I drive through Sun City to get places, so it's not that far from me. So to know that there are llamas roaming free, what is this world coming to, Pete?
Well, so the biggest question I have is was Arizona as nuts about Lamagate as the internet was?
Well, I saw the news stations popping up talking about it on Facebook as well. So clearly they were tapping into it. I didn't hear any actual person talk about it at all. No. I take that back. I heard one person bring it up today. So I don't know. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, it's pretty predictable that the people who live there would not care quite so much about it as the internet.
Yeah.
That happens to us too. I get it. I'm disappointed because, my goodness, Twitter was fantastic today. This was one of those great Twitter days. Because it took a long time to suss out, were they llamas or were they alpacas?
Oh.
And that, as it turned out, was a very difficult thing, a mystery to solve. So thank God for Reddit and Twitter.
It's hard to tell from those aerial photos.
Exactly. Serial Season 2 is actually, I think, just been locked.
This is what happens in the lazy first world.
That's right. So you, tell me your story. What did you want to talk about?
Our documentary, The Joe Show.
No, was accepted.
I don't know. You've heard of that. Was accepted into the Luxembourg Film Festival, of all places. And they're actually flying.
Cannes.
That's right. Who needs to go to Cannes? Luxembourg. They're flying us out, though. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, so I'm adding Luxembourg to my bucket list, and then I'll be able to check it right off of there.
Do that in a hurry.
Absolutely.
Well
so yeah,
done.
I'm gonna go spend a week in Luxembourg. I'm gonna take a little. I'm bringing my wife with me, so we're gonna take a little jaunt over to Paris and spend a couple days there as well.
Gay Paris.
Gay Paris. I was very tempted to bring a still of Val Kilmer from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and take a picture with that in Paris.
You know what you need to do? You actually need to do some Lavender Hill Mob action.
I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about making sure that I get a little Eiffel Tower statue that I can bring and pretend that it's actually melted gold.
Oh, would you please do that? You have to get the one that's actually, there's got to be one actually on the tower. Got to go to the Eiffel Tower.
Hashtag 2015 Pony Prize.
Oh my God, I love it so much. All right. Well, I have you want to kind of talk about the other thing I wanted to talk to you about?
Okay.
Oscars.
Wonderful night for Oscar. Oscar, who will win?
How'd you feel, just in general, about it?
It was a bit of a slog.
God, it was a slog. Wow.
It was just, the energy was just, it was pretty lifeless, which was really disappointing because I like NPH quite a bit, but I just think that the people behind the Oscars just need to go, because I really feel like they've been floundering for a decade now and they haven't quite found the right magic formula to make it work again.
Yep.
And I mean, I was as far as who won, I was pretty pleased with pretty much all of them. I didn't have any problems with anything. It was nice to see that every film nominated for Best Picture won at least one award.
Yeah.
I think the last time that happened was, 2007. And my biggest complaint is that the Lego Movie was not even nominated for Best Animated Picture.
I was going to say that Big Hero 6 one was fine. I was a big fine. I thought it was a fine film. My kids loved it. It was essentially, I saw it after you saw it, and I think you nailed it. Like maybe you ruined it for me, but it was not as good as the very best of the Pixar kind of animated films, the Disney animated films, but it was fine and the kids loved it. So it was great. It just didn't have as much heart as I really wanted it to have. And so when it won, it just was another reminder that, Lego Movie didn't get any nod at all. I mean, the twist at the end of the Lego Movie was just so good. It was so good. It was like for the ages. And so that really bummed me out. I'm with you. I think one of the things we got last year with Ellen DeGeneres is that we got a character, somebody whose personality transcends the people the handlers who create the show behind it. And her on stage, I thought when she ordered a pizza, when she did the selfie, I thought those were very charming, funny moments, and I thought it was much more entertaining to watch. And I like NPH a lot too. This just didn't feel like a good fit, which really surprised me because he's such a stage man. Like he is so good, with a crowd. And I felt like, God, it felt just really chained.
Well, and I think, because, I mean, he's hosted the Tonys, and I've never seen it, but I hear he does a great job at that. And maybe there's a difference, because the Tonys, I think it's a stage show first, and then it's a television broadcast second.
Exactly, yeah.
And the Oscars always kind of feel like it's a television broadcast first, but they're trying to figure out how to make the stage show part of it work, and it just never does.
It never does. It didn't really this week. In terms of Best Picture, the only one that we texted about this a little bit. I really wanted Boyhood to win, and I know that was the long shot. I was the dark horse, but I found myself, even as Birdman won, I found myself really genuinely disappointed, because that was a film that I thought would have held up the nomination better for me. Yeah, we don't agree.
I don't know if I agree with you on that. Although, I was fine with either of those, and I don't know if I'd call Boyhood the dark horse, because I think it was going to be one of those two, no matter what.
Yeah, unless you're Grand Budapest Hotel winning everything else, just one after another, all of the bench strength awards,
right?
Then it was going to be one of those two.
Yeah.
I was proud of Grand Budapest Hotel. I was really glad to see how it did.
And I was really glad that Desplat finally won.
Yes.
An Oscar, because he's just been brilliant for far too long to not have an Oscar sitting on his shelf.
I agree with that. All right. So, all right. I think we're in violent agreement.
Violent.
Let's tell the people where we're from.
Where are we from?
Hey, everybody, this is The Next Reel. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hello!
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the second in our mystery series with Clint Eastwood's 2004 Ode to Women Who Sport, $1 Million Baby. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you think you've got what it takes to go head-to-head against the Big Llama, you head over to Instagram.com/TheNextReel and play The Next Reel's Instagram, #PonyPrize, #Don'tPokeTheSteven, #GuessTheMovieChallenge. Andy, how'd we do against the forces of evil this week?
This was a good week for good old Stephen Smart. He really... he brought it out. It was this was all alpaca all the time going on. It was a tricky week. I had a hard time with it. It wasn't until Image 6 and I saw it. I'm like, oh, okay, now I've pieced it all together. And so did JB86, who figured it out. Predator 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, exactly. It was great to see that somebody was able to pull it out. And it's great to see that good old Stephen Smart really socked it to the people this week.
Wow, well done.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers. Okay, so I have to admit, you have sent me 2 links to trailers. I'm more excited about one than another, but I think that's the one you're doing next week.
Yes.
Ugh, that makes me so sad.
The one for next week?
Yes, because I want to hear about it now. It's like the most exciting trailer ever. It's exciting and terrible and strange. But let's talk about this week's.
Yes, all those things. Well, we can only build anticipation for a whole week now.
Because let me say, that next week's trailer, you will not just stumble across this trailer. This is a gentleman does not watch this kind of trailer. What are you doing this week?
This week, Guillermo del Toro is a filmmaker that I think both you and I have our own little love-hate relationships with.
Truly.
I think you love some of the films I hate, and I love the films you hate.
I think it is a direct inversion.
I believe it is. I'm curious if this one will break that streak. I'm hoping it's something that both of us will actually like. It's his new film Crimson Peak that's going to open up in October, and it looks like a haunted house thriller that looks really creepy. It has just a great tone to it all. It's very gothic. And, speaking of gothic, you couldn't go any more perfectly than casting Tom Hiddleston, who looks like just a perfect gothic figure. Jessica Chastain, Mia Wasikowska, and Charlie Hunnam are all in it. And they all just fit perfectly in this world of this gothic, creepy, haunted house where there's this... Mia Wasikowska is this outsider, and she's brought into this world by Tom Hiddleston, who it looks like he kind of falls for her a little bit. He and his sister, Jessica Chastain, have been living in this house, and it seems like there have been a lot of family tragedies that have gone on in this house. A lot of creepy things, a lot of dead body sorts of things appearing and just doing, looking creepy like ghosts do. And I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of scares. I think there's going to be a lot of just creepy vibes all through this. I think it's along the line of maybe more the what's the one that he did with the drowned kid, the Devil's Backbone. Backbone.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah,
that was a very creepy one. And I think it's going to be more along the lines of that. Yet I think it looks a little more mainstream at the same time. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm quite looking forward to this one. It's full of gothic creepiness.
In your own best interest, proceed with caution.
Has anyone died in this house? Specific deaths, violent deaths. I have to leave.
I'm here to take you away.
There's nowhere else to go. This is your home now.
Do you remember the movie Gothic?
I remember Gothica.
It was Ken Russell directed this movie in 1986. The movie Gothic, and it starred Gabriel Byrne and Julian Sands and Natasha Richardson. It was the story of Mary Shelley's the night Mary Shelley wrote or came up with the idea for Frankenstein. So it was just this like Lord Byron and Shelley, and they're all hanging out and drinking and doing drugs and coming up with horror stories. And it was that a very similar kind of tone in my head. And as I'm thinking about this movie, all I can see is Tom Hiddleston playing Gabriel Byrne's role. Like, you should go back and see this movie. It's really pretty divisive. It doesn't do that well. I don't think it holds up very well, but it reminds me very much of the same sort of tone that is set in Crimson Peak. The other thing I was thinking about Crimson Peak is that it's funny, isn't it, that doesn't it sort of strike you that there may be too much movie in it to be a movie, that it would make a great kind of serial, like a Netflix serial?
I hadn't thought about that, but now that you say that, absolutely. I think something like this would make an absolutely riveting Netflix show or something like that.
Totally. And that I can't quite shake it, but I'm really looking forward to it too. And I think you may be right. This may be the one that unites us around Guillermo del Toro.
Here's hoping. Yes. So that's just in time for Halloween next I guess this year.
Next this year?
Next this year.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, my trailer. Okay, so did you watch the Grammys?
I didn't.
Did you see? Have you seen any of the talk about Sia's performance of Chandelier, the live performance of Chandelier that she did?
I didn't.
Okay. Well, you're a whole lot of nothing for this conversation, so it would be very one-sided. If you did watch the Grammys, you saw Kristen Wiig as one of the dancers in Sia's live performance of Chandelier, and it's really a bizarre thing, the way Sia's whole performance aesthetic works, that she won't show her face, and so when she performs live, she stands in the corner of the back of the set and faces the wall, like 2 inches from the wall, and sings, so nobody can ever see her face.
Weird.
It is very, very strange. You can see there are a number of live performances you can find of her doing this, and you can see her on on, I don't know if it's Oprah or no, Ellen. She did this on Ellen Live. Well, anyway, she did it on the way she does it was she's facing backwards, I guess to entertain the audience. They usually bring out this little girl. I don't know if it's some relation to see or what, but this little girl who was in the original video of Chandelier, and she does this interpretive dance. And the video itself is quite stunning. This little girl is incredibly talented.
I've seen the video.
Yeah, so that girl like travels around with her and does these shows, right? So that little girl was in the live Grammy performance. But the person who really stole the show in the Grammy performance was Kristen Wiig. She played another interpretive dancer wearing the same outfit, the same kind of like unitard, with the same wig, and did this performance with the little girl. They did kind of a duo instead of the solo dance. And it was, I mean, it left me seriously speechless. It just hammered home how great Kristen Wiig is at picking projects that showcase her abilities, even weird ones like 5-minute segments on the Grammys doing interpretive dance. So my trailer is yet another example of Kristen Wiig picking a project that absolutely nails her sensibilities as an actress. This time from director Shira Piven and writer Elliot Lawrence, Wiig plays an emotionally unstable woman who wins the lottery and buys a talk show that she can host and talk all about herself in Welcome to Me.
Now, I'd like to get a volunteer from the audience. What's your name?
My name is Alice Klieg. I won $86 million.
She really won the lottery? Seriously, can someone Google that?
You must be the big winner. I'm Rich.
Me too. I want a talk show with me as the host.
You want to talk about current events?
No.
What kind of stuff do you want to talk about?
Me? How much will that cost?
$15 million.
Oh, and I want to come in on a swan boat.
Wiig stars with James Marsden, Alan Tudyk, Tim Robbins, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Linda Cardellini. Adore her. It just comes off as funny and awkward and charming and amounts to another entry in this growing catalog of films that mark a really sad commentary on fame and aspiration in our generation. What'd you think?
I loved it. I was just laughing pretty hysterically through the trailer. The concept is just brilliant. And, just here's $15 million, just writing this money, writing this check to go out and have this show. And she really wants to be Oprah, but clearly isn't. And it was, she is, I think you're right. She is the perfect person to really pull it off.
It's just hand to glove, right? It is absolutely hand to glove.
Absolutely.
I think this trailer is absolutely worth checking out, and the movie comes out the 1st of May, 2015.
Excellent.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
You got big holes in your socks.
These are my sleeping socks.
You got it. You got it. That was the one. That's the one. That was the one.
If I take you on,
I promise I'll work so hard.
you don't question me, then I'm going to try to forget the fact that you're a girl. Now, what is the rule?
Protect myself at all times.
Good.
Find a man, marry him. People hear about what you're doing and they laugh at you.
I got nobody but you, Frankie.
Well, you've got me. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'm just trying to keep you from doing the same.
I know, boss.
Good man to have in the corner.
Yes, he is.
And look, hey, get the hell down. You know how old I am. I just want to keep her with me.
You just protected yourself out of a championship.
Frankie, I've seen you at Mass almost every day for 23 years. The only person who comes to church that much is the kind who can't forgive himself for something.
You got a fight I don't know about?
You gonna leave me?
Never.
Clint Eastwood, writer Paul Haggis, bring 2004's $1 Million Baby with the wonderfully talented Hilary Swank. Man, I had never seen this movie.
What?
Yeah.
You had never seen this?
I had never seen this.
Wow. Had it been spoiled for you?
No, not at all. Not at all. It had not been spoiled. I don't know what it was. You know, I don't know what it was. I don't know why I missed it. I don't know why it totally snuck by. I remember wanting to see it. I remember seeing it come up in the rentals, and I should get that. I never got it.
Wow.
I know. So
wow.
Needless to say, I was shocked.
Yeah.
That it turned the way that it turned. I was blown to bits.
It is one hell of a third act twist, isn't it?
And we should say, and it sort of snuck up on me because I wasn't quite ready to we're recording this a little bit early, and so I kind of missed my normal window for watching movies. So I started watching it last night at 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And so by 11:45, as the big third act twist, it's like I am so wide awake. I'm like sitting up in bed in the dark. My wife is sound asleep, snoring away next to me, and I am just like I'm like twitching. It was a hot mess.
Yeah, we should tell anybody who has not seen this movie before they finish listening to this episode to go watch the movie first.
This is one. I mean, we spoil movies. It's kind of what we do, and we're going to spoil this movie. If you're like me, and I would never have wanted to hear this show not having seen this movie.
Absolutely.
It was absolutely worth not being spoiled. If you've managed to live in a box
like you have,
like me, for the last 11 years.
Oh man. Well, that's great, though. I'm so excited that you managed to not be spoiled, though. That was a big thing at the time because all the critics were trying to figure out how to review this without spoiling the movie. Ebert had a thing in his where he gave a spoiler warning saying, look, I don't know how to review this without giving some of the plot points away, and it's going to spoil it. So it was a very big thing at the time. People were really trying to juggle how much can we review about this without spoiling it. And even just the fact saying, hey, there's a big third act twist ends up kind of becoming this spoiler. And so, people had to be real careful with this. And it kind of, the movie doesn't go the way that you think it's going to go. And so it's hard to review.
Really hard to review. And also makes for one of the most satisfying sports dramas that I've ever seen. Because it doesn't go the direction that you think it's going to go. And yet, there is still, I'm left with a sense of redemption and victory at the end, which is what I want to feel after a sports movie, particularly after we follow this character who has worked so hard and overcome all of the odds that you can throw at this, woman who's too old for the sport, who's never really boxed, but suddenly wants to box and wants to be trained by this legendary kind of Detroit trainer, and like all of these things that she has overcome. I still walk away from this film feeling redeemed by it.
Yeah,
it was really satisfying.
It absolutely is. This is a film I remember watching and walking out of the theater just feeling like just raw because of the emotional journey it took me on. And I think that really kind of held true for a lot of people and still to this day when people watch it for the first time or watch it, again. I still really was hit by this film watching it again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Where would you like to start in light of the spoilerificness?
Well, I think it's a really interesting story that I don't think necessarily fits. I was really stewing on this story a bit the last 24 hours since I watched it, just deliberating on how it fits within kind of the Hollywood mold of stories. The long and the short of this story is Hilary Swank is Maggie Fitzgerald, this girl who wants to be a boxer, and she wants to have Frankie, played by Clint Eastwood, train her. He doesn't want to because she's a girl and he doesn't think girls can box and all that stuff. But he kind of is swayed by her insistence and by his friend's insistence, Morgan Freeman, who is also brilliant in the film as Eddie Scrap Iron Dupree. And so he takes her on and trains her and goes through this journey with her as she kind of becomes the next big thing in women's boxing and keeps kind of moving up the ranks. And until she gets to this big fight, and then that's where and there's a lot of surrogate daughter, surrogate father sort of relationship in there between the two of them, which I think is a very important thing, a very important story element in this tale that we watch.
And I think ironic that we're doing this movie, which is very much a father-daughter movie, after we did the father-son quintology. Last week.
That's true. Yeah, that is actually something I hadn't thought about, but it is kind of interesting. We definitely see, there's an interesting subplot with her family. There's an interesting subplot with some other boxers in the gym. I think they give us a wide variety of different stories to follow over the course of this, but largely it's the relationship between Maggie and Frankie as they go on this journey. And I mean, in a way, it ends up. I think the way the movie tricks you is you think that it's Maggie's journey. You think that it's her journey to kind of become this next great boxer, but because of this accident that happens to her, it leaves her basically in a state where she can't do anything anymore. She's essentially paralyzed from the neck down, and then that's when it switches back to really looking. You realize that this is really Frankie's journey as this boxer who really was kind of afraid to commit to bringing his the people that he was training up because he didn't think they were quite ready. And then he finally changed with her and started pushing her into these different matches and everything, and saw that she was ready. But then it was kind of the relationship, and it was his journey that we're actually following over the course of the film. So that was a really nice way of looking at these two characters. But then I was like, well, who's the antagonist in this film? This isn't really a clear-cut by the books screenplay written where you've got the protagonist who wants to achieve something, you've got the antagonist who's trying to stop them from getting it. This is really kind of this beautiful sports drama that unfolds where you don't necessarily, I mean, you have antagonistic forces, don't get me wrong, but there is no real clear-cut bad guy, bad force that you're fighting. There is the Blue Bear boxer that she ends up fighting later, but she doesn't come into it. It's not like she's this consistent force over the course of it. So it really ends up just being this relationship film as these characters are all growing together and changing each other over the course of the story.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think you're right because of the sort of the story's a little bit bifurcated, right? I mean, it really it changes at the hands of the Blue. Isn't the Blue Bolt? Isn't that her thing?
The blue bear.
Bear? Is it the bear?
Yeah, the Blue Bear.
It really changes because of her. I mean, she is a dirty fighter, and she takes a pot shot at our our hero, our boxing heroine, But as soon as that changes, I mean, you want that to be the story of redemption, and I think at that point, that's when I lock into the film, and my hopes start their roller coaster journey, right? Because at every turn, I want this to be a story about, or I think this is a story about her healing and her coming back and her going back into the ring and her taking care of business and taking down the Blue Bear, right? You
right.
Really, you instinctively, because we're so ingrained in this story type, this archetype, that this is her journey, and that third act twist is going to be her, her point of redemption, and she's going to get vengeance and she's going to win the day, and she doesn't. And I had not. I mean, I'm still putting the pieces together. When you just said this really is Eastwood's story. It really is his story as the trainer coming to terms with the fact that he's already lost the relationship of his biological daughter, and he lives every scene, every day, in terror that he's going to lose this relationship that has developed, this powerful relationship that has developed with his new sort of adopted boxing daughter. That he has to come to terms with that loss at the end of this film is an amazing exploration in the power of storytelling. And I mean, I have an unbelievable amount of respect for Haggis for getting this so elegantly portrayed from word to screen.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
It's touching because you can see that relationship. I mean, even when Frankie is dealing with Willie at the beginning, the boxer that he's trained, he is afraid of giving Willie that title shot because he just doesn't think Willie's quite ready. Even though we all know Willie is probably ready, Frankie's just not quite ready to face the loss again, and lose somebody. But because of that, he ends up losing Willie because he is afraid to commit. And then the whole thing with Maggie, that relationship, it's so touching the way that develops and the way that changes.
And so in that respect, Andy, I mean, I think about this as the antagonist or the antagonistic force. I mean, is it fair to say that the major obstacle that Eastwood's character that Frankie is looking to overcome is his own fear of loss. He comes up against it again and again. It's like the monster in this film that we never see, but we know is there. And that is the redemption at the end of the film, when he's able to walk out of that hospital and is essentially a free man.
Yeah, and walk out of his life entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
He just disappears. And where does he go? He goes to this place that shares such a powerful memory between him and Maggie.
Yeah. It's touching. I can't remember what you asked me.
It was this idea of the antagonist being an antagonistic force, right? How do you approach that from a screenwriting perspective?
Well, it's really tricky. I mean, you can have kind of, the antagonist as self, like there's that other part of yourself that is the antagonistic force. You could look at this where Frankie and Maggie could be. I mean, Frankie might be the protagonist and Maggie's the antagonist, and because it certainly starts that way, but they kind of come together. It's just how does that resolve? And I don't think that's it either. So I think that it may be, and this is just one of those one of the guys in the screenwriting department over here, Bill True, always calls these the ninja screenwriters, and he would probably classify Paul Haggis as one of these ninja screenwriters, somebody who can write really well where this character is their own antagonist. And it doesn't necessarily fit within the conventions, but the story works so brilliantly on every level that he gets away with it. And he's able to actually effectively do that, where Frankie does have all that antagonistic force within himself and is actually, that's part of his character arc, and that's part of the growth that he needs to go through as a character, and actually find the right path in order to get through the pain that has kind of locked him in over the course of his life, getting past the issues with his daughter, getting past all these issues that he's had with Maggie, and actually finally moving past all of it.
Yeah, I love how he phrases that, ninja screenwriter. That's really that's what it feels like. It feels like a very natural term.
Yeah, right.
Because this is such a really sneaky, subversive script in that regard. That we never quite know who we're addressing, who we're dealing with.
Well, and I think a lot of that also is the way that he plays with the subplots that I already mentioned. You have this really interesting story of Danger, the wannabe boxer who's fairly simple, who is not very bright, but he's there. He wants to train because he wants to be the welterweight champion of the world.
This is played by Jay Baruchel, who's really terrific.
Yeah, he's great in the role. Yeah. And I think this was the first time I may have seen him in something.
Yeah.
But he, as Morgan Freeman, who's narrating the film, says, Danger is all heart. He is nothing but heart. And then on the flip side, you have Sharrell, played by Anthony Mackie, who has no heart but is a really good boxer. And it's the danger, not the character, but the actual danger that lies when you're either all heart or no heart. You have to have some balance in boxing to really be effective. And you can see how that plays out in the subplot between Danger and Sharrell, as Sharrell is just a bully, and Danger just he's not in a place where he can get the experience, although he slowly starts learning over the course of the film. And I think that that's a really interesting subplot when you actually look at how that evolves with Maggie, who is a good balance between the two, because yes, she has a lot of heart, but she also is completely dedicated to the sport, and she's dedicated to learning from Clint Eastwood because she sees him as the best. She's dedicated to just him. She's not going to bail on him like some of the other people have, and she's just she just believes in herself, and she's incredibly skilled, and it's a great way to kind of portray her place in this sport when you look at the different aspects of it.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. There are a couple of subplots that I do have issues with. There are two in particular, and I one of them I think I'm not struggling with. The other one I'm definitely struggling with. The one I'm not struggling with is the relationship that Frankie has with the priest. He's the most useless priest I've ever seen on screen. Totally useless, and even in the sort of comic relationship, as Frankie always goes to church. He goes to church every day for Mass. That's sort of a character thing. And they have these little things. He drives the priest nuts. He drives him nuts because he's always questioning God. He's questioning the relationship of God and man. He's questioning the structure of biblical teachings, and okay, it's sort of comical, and I sort of get it. But when the push comes to shove, and Frankie is really broken, and we need to see some sort of a turn. The priest is completely useless. Like, it ends up giving the worst advice that you would get. I mean, it's just non-advice. It gives non-advice. It's a horribly written scene. It's a scene that is, I just find, a waste of space in the film. And I think that relationship, I think it's not necessary for me. What do you think?
I guess, I mean, it definitely does provide some comic relief, that relationship. I don't think that the last bit of advice is completely horrible. I actually think it's an interesting just insight into looking at it, because I think that Frankie, I think probably from the story perspective, they needed to just emphasize how wrong it would be even to go and put her down, so to speak, like her father did to their dog. Mm-hmm. How wrong it would be to do that in God's eyes. As somebody who goes to church as regularly as he does, because as the priest says, he never sees anybody come to church that often unless they have a lot of sins that they're feeling like they need to atone for. And clearly there's some issue with his daughter that left their relationship completely broken. So, I think that it's a useful relationship in my eyes. I've never really had a problem with it. I haven't really thought about it so much, but the way that you put it, I guess I can see your point that last little bit of advice is like, well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Do we need to actually have that told to us? Because, knowing that he's a religious person, we would expect that he would find that to be a completely wrong decision to make.
Because we're already seeing him struggle with it. For me, it becomes a show don't tell kind of experience. We've already seen it. We've just put the words in the priest's mouth, and coming from he's sort of an unreliable spiritual figure because he's always the angry one, and so he is no safe harbor. And so that's the problem I have with it. I'm not sure what it stands for.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because perhaps it would have been a stronger conversation had we seen the priest actually giving some sermons and known, hey, okay, so Clint Eastwood is always giving this guy grief, but this guy actually knows what he's talking about. He actually is a very good priest. He actually really has a strong belief and is a good person to talk to, even though Frankie's always kind of, just having these backward conversations about, is it one God or is it three?
Because then we would have experience with him being a safe harbor, with that church being a place of safety and sanctity, and instead we just get it's a place that is sort of lampooned as a place that exists of frustration and sarcasm and not safety.
But would it have worked? Like say that subplot wasn't there, would that moment have worked if Frankie had that same conversation with Scrap, for example, and actually talked to him about, Maggie has asked me to do this, what do you think? And Scrap is the one who said, it's wrong, you can't do that. And Frankie talks about, I know that it would be wrong to kill her, but leaving her alive is killing her and all that, because I think his side of it is pretty powerful. And I just wonder
when you say his, you mean Scrap's or
Frankie's? No, I think Frankie's side of the conversation when he's talking to the priest.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty strong. But maybe if he had that with Scrap, it would have worked better, because that would have been a more meaningful conversation with somebody who's more tied into the story.
Well, think about that, right? Because Scrap is the representation of the heart of Frankie's life, right? Scrap is the beating heart of the gym. He is the beating heart of, he's the guy who keeps a rein on the sanity, on what this place is. And even though they have their sort of sarcastic jibes between one another, they are never you never get a sense that they are meant from a point of antagonism, right? I mean, the relationship they have is very special, and that's the relationship I think that you would come to expect comments like, that. But at the same time, and because I've only seen it once, the conversation that he does have with Scraps, what was Scraps' perspective when they're standing in that incredibly perfectly lit locker room? He's having that conversation. What was Scraps' perspective? I've gotten everything tied up.
Well, that was. I don't remember if he ever really specifically brought that up with Scrap at that point, but I know that's where he apologized to Scrap for saying, "Hey, I never should have said that it was your fault." And Scrap's
that's right.
Damn right, you shouldn't. And and they kind of they make amends and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think you just put your finger on it, why I'm frustrated by it, and I think I like the movie much better imagining that conversation happening with Scraps.
Well, and actually it works a lot better. I'm selling myself. I think you've sold me on it too. Because think about it, I mean, Scrap is the audience surrogate of the story. He's the one narrating this whole thing. I mean, we find out at the end he's actually writing this letter to Frankie's daughter.
Yes.
But over the course of the story, all this narration, I mean, it's very much Shawshank Redemption type of thing, where he is our main character that is telling us this story. We are seeing this whole thing through his eyes. If Frankie had this conversation with Scrap, it would have been like he's having the conversation with us, trying to decide if what is right and what is wrong, and that could have tied us in even in an even stronger way.
Yep. Absolutely. I think we've just made a significant improvement in the film. Let me go on to my second one.
All right.
And this is the one I'm struggling with. And you already said it. The narration is great. This is one where I think the narration is really great. What I was struggling with was the repetition of the issues of the letters with Eastwood's daughter. Right? Every time we see the letters a number of times through the film. He takes the letters, he files them away, he puts them in the box and puts them away. And I found myself really fatigued with that storyline. I found it sort of a distraction from the things I was interested in. And so by the end of the film, I was just really like, that was another one. That and The Priest were the two pieces that I didn't need. I already knew enough. Like, they've already demonstrated that he has an issue with his daughter. She's estranged and won't talk to her. I didn't need to see the letters over and over again, and I was kind of frustrated that we kept having that. I got that this was a relationship between that Maggie was a surrogate daughter for him, and that relationship was very special. It made the third act so powerful, and I was really frustrated that we kept going back to these letters, even in the third act when we were really heavily into, what are we going to do about Maggie? And here we have more letters. He goes home and he's got more letters returned to sender. So I didn't need that. The reason I'm struggling is because the last 2 minutes of the film, we discovered that the narration is the narration of Scraps writing a letter to Frankie's daughter. And so I am confused upon myself. What you know what I'm saying? Like, in some respects, in order for that narration to work, do we need all the letters? Do we need some of the letters? Did they do enough diligence in convincing us of the story of the estrangement of the daughter early on, that we could have gotten rid of so many of the letters and the things to still make the narration pay off? I don't know.
Well, what I do like about it, because I guess I'll say it's never bothered me. What I do like about it is that it shows that this is a man who really needs to mend that relationship. He has been trying. I mean, the film takes place over about, a year and a half, I think at one point they say.
Yeah, something like that. She goes from, 31 to 30...
Yeah, and I think they say that, the last year and a half or something. So it's been about a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. We see that this is a father who is consistently trying to connect with his daughter, and she's just not responding at all. So I do like that they give us that they allow us to see that he is working to mend that relationship. It's not something that we just see once. It's something that we see repeated times. So for me, I think it's fairly important, and I found it kind of an essential part of the story. That being said, I was never a big fan of the fact that the narration ends up being the letter writing. Like when I got
tell
to
me
the
why
ending,
about that. That's really interesting.
I don't know. It's just it's one of those things because I always struggle when I have narration in a film, and we could create a whole subgenre of movies on our page. Create another list of movies with narration that ends up being a letter being written to somebody. Because then you go back and it's like, well, how much of that actually makes sense as a letter to somebody? You know, it's like a lot of the stuff that he was saying, I don't know if it would actually make sense in the letter.
It would be a fun exercise to go back and actually transcribe only the narration.
Right.
And write it as a letter and just see how weird it is.
Exactly. That's always the issue for me. I mean, it's a great device, I guess. But for me, it's one that...
It's an easy device.
It's an easy device, yes. Because otherwise you get to the end and it's like, did they put it in there because the writer's just struggling, going, well, how can we end it with this narration? Should it tie into something or what? And for me, it was just never something that worked as well as I wish it could have.
Yeah, you know, I do agree with you there, and I think that may be part of my challenge is that, you know, I generally am anti-narration in general. The fact that it's a letter, I didn't find myself as hung up on that because I was so hung up on the letters in the first place, and that the narration sort of rationalizes all these letters for me, or attempts to rationalize all these letters. It, you know, creates its own issues, and that's why I'm sort of hung up on it. But now that you say it, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it is troublesome, and I wonder. I mean, the letter it's an easy out, but do we necessarily need to know that you know, Scraps is writing a letter? How much do we really need to see this narration justified in movie space, in the movie world? Right.
Well, I mean, only in the sense that they've established this subplot with his daughter and the letters. In a way, I guess you could say it kind of helps create a sense of closure for that subplot. But again, you're right. I don't know if it was necessary. I just think that's the justification for it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the script. Generally, I thought the structure of the film was fantastic.
Well, and I think something interesting about it that Paul Haggis actually said when Clint Eastwood came on board and said he wanted to direct this, Paul showed up with his notepad ready to kind of take notes as to how he could do some rewrites, and he said to Clint, "So what do you want to do? How should we rework it?" And Clint's, "No, I like it like this. I think we'll just go with this." And Paul was just like, "Well, you realize that's just my first draft." And Clint's like, "Yeah, that's okay. I think you hit everything here, and I think we'll just make this one." It's, you know, he liked that it was ragged, that it was imperfect, and that's something that he tends to do. That was the same thing with Unforgiven. He said, "We're going to make this movie warts and all," and I think that may play into some of the issues that we're having here, where those were some of the imperfections within the script, and I think Clint Eastwood sees those, and maybe he was even aware of them, but was just felt that the story, like they worked for the story, even if they were a little rough, and went forward with it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I didn't catch that. This was a first draft production.
Yeah, I know.
Well played, Mr.
Yeah, good
Haggis.
old. Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, so how about Eastwood's performance? You know, we've talked a little bit about Eastwood and Eastwood directing Eastwood. How does this hold up for you?
Really well. I think this is just a rock solid performance of his in a good body of work. I mean, we've talked actually about a lot of Clint Eastwood films in this show. Now that I look back on it, quite a lot. Not ever quite intentional, but we really have hit a good number of them. I just always enjoy watching him. I think older Clint Eastwood. There was a period in the after Unforgiven, before this, I think there was a lot of rough patches in there, but I think he really started hitting his stride again here. Maybe I'm not a huge fan of Mystic River, which came out the year before, although I know it was received quite well, and I think that, you know, he's done pretty well since. I mean, there's definitely been ups and downs. He's just one of those filmmakers who's got a lot of ups and downs in his films that he makes, but I think he's always making challenging films and performing. I think he does a great job when he's directing himself. I think he does a wonderful job here. I think he's got the right mentality as Frankie. It reminds me a lot of his character in Gran Torino. And I mean, yeah, I think he works really well as this closed off character who has to go through this this character growth in order to help Maggie get to where she needs to be, only to then have to kind of grow past the idea of letting her go once he's finally attached to her. And it's kind of like the whole thing, like now that he has her, he's going to have to let her go. And it's a pretty powerful story, and I think he does it really well. I think in terms of his performance as an actor, when he opens the door, ironically, this is a piece that I found particularly touching when he opens the door the last time to his house, and he looks down and he sees the letters, and this is after he's trying to adjust to this new world with Maggie in the hospital. The look on his face and the red around his eyes and just the way he moves through the sequence without any words is about as vulnerable as I think I've ever seen Clint Eastwood in film. And I found myself just really choking up at that sequence, watching this guy come to terms with this terror that is so real. In a film about a sport where people put themselves in a ring and deal with terror that is very, very real. Yeah, absolutely. And so I found myself really moved by his performance here. I thought he did a fantastic job. Yeah. Well, what about good old Morgan? Oh, right? What's not to love? I wanted to pull up a cot. I want to bunk with Morgan. He's so awesome. I thought he did a fantastic job. Again, I've already sort of laid out my case for Morgan. He's the heart and soul of that gym, and he is the anchor to so much of this story. He's the anchor between the A story and the B stories that live in the gym, and he provides the North Star for these other people. He's for, as you mentioned, between Mike Coulter and Jay Baruchel and Anthony Mackie and Michael Pena, who deliver these wonderful sort of B-story performances that allow us to see what the ecosystem looks like, what this organism looks like of the gym. I thought he just did a wonderful job, socks and all. Whether they're holy or not. There's sleeping socks. And this is, he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this, and I believe this was his first Oscar. Well deserved. Okay. Did you have other comments about Morgan? No, I love him. I think he's brilliant in this. I do always find it shocking that it took so long for him to actually get an Oscar. Is kind of kind of a shame. I think that he was first nominated back in '87 for Street Smart for a supporting role, and then Driving Miss Daisy, Shawshank Redemption, and then he finally won $1 Million Baby. Then he was nominated again for Invictus. So he's only been nominated 5 times, but he just he's one of those guys who just seems like he's brilliant in everything. He is. He's brilliant in everything. He's just a phenomenally talented guy. So really enjoyed him, and I really, really enjoyed Hilary Swank. I think that anytime Annette Bening is getting ready to make a film that is going to be considered for an Oscar, that she should just check Hilary's schedule and make sure that Hilary is not doing something also. Because I swear, every time Annette Bening does a great performance in a film and likely should win an Oscar, Hilary Swank sweeps in and takes the Oscar home. She did that in '99 with Boys Don't Cry, and then she did it here opposite her when Annette Bening was in Being Julia. So yeah, Hilary Swank is just stunning in this film. She is so good. She is the heart and the skill. She does that so well. She plays that eager to learn, passionate character who's just excited to kind of do what it is that she loves to do. What I love so much about her performance is that, she really does find that balance between, man, girl got fit for this film. Yeah. Holy cow. Between just muscle and brawn. And
her sort of background and the way she speaks and the way, we characterize the rest of her family makes her come off as dumb. She's just like all heart and muscle, but not a lot of smarts. And yet, as her career kind of begins to move forward, and we get these little hints of her, buying a house for her mom, a completely ungrateful family, ridiculous, beautifully portrayed by Margo Martingale. I think when we finally get to know who she really is, it's when mom and family are by her bedside, asking her to sign the transfer of assets. I guess the what is it? The attorney. Mm-hmm. What's the form? When you give away your rights, or you what is it called? It's
like I don't know, power of attorney.
Power
form?
of attorney. I'm going to say it's that.
Sure.
Some sort of power of attorney. So the mom can control the assets. And when she drops the pen out of her mouth and says, "Who are you? What happened to you?" Mm-hmm. We get to see who Hilary Swank, or who this Maggie Fitzgerald really is, and that it took us 2 hours to get to that point made her journey, I think, really rewarding to watch. I was so moved by her performance every turn.
Yeah. And it's a great moment also because, like we said, she's created this surrogate relationship with Clint Eastwood, kind of as a surrogate father. But this is this point where Frankie is trying to protect her and is just like, why don't you leave the paperwork and I'll read it to her later. And Maggie is the one who says, all due respect, this doesn't concern you, and asks him to leave. And that's just like, she really does step up right here and is ready to kind of face her mother finally and have this conversation with her mother. And it is very powerful, and it's heartbreaking too, because she has been such a giving daughter, buying this house and doing whatever she could to try to take care of her mother and her family. And this is where she really is, sees exactly what level they are at, and is ready to kind of cut the ties as hard as it is for her.
Yeah, it was really moving, and I think it shows it's one of the really neat sort of narrative techniques when you break a character down physically so that this she is unable to move, she is unable to breathe on her own, and you make her you allow us to discover just how strong she really is. I mean, we got that same thing with Diving Bell and the Butterfly. You break this character down, and only then do you really realize their strength. And I think that was so well played here.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Anybody else in particular you want to talk about in the cast besides the big three?
I think they're all great. I think everyone does their role really well. The only other person that I think was just worth giving a shout out to was Benito Martinez, who pops up in this, who he had been in one of my favorite TV shows, The Shield, for a long time. And it was nice to kind of see him. He's just in it so briefly as the manager of Billy the Blue Bear. But it's just like, oh, hey, look. So there he is.
That's good. Like old home week.
That's right.
In terms of, we talked about Eastwood as a performer, but in terms of Eastwood directing Eastwood, any comments from the perspective as a director?
From his directing, how he did it?
Yeah.
This is I think that... he chose a really interesting palette for this film that is very dark. It is very bleak, desaturated. Everything about it seems really just kind of have the color sucked out of it. And I think it works really well for the actual story that is being told here. There's a lot of shadow play all through this film. It's just some beautiful compositions all through. I think he worked really well with his cinematographer to create this dark look that I find it very almost haunting. Tom Stern was the DP, and I really love the overall look that they did. And Clint Eastwood did the music also for this. And I think that he created just a very simple theme that works really well to kind of get across the power of the the place that this man is at the time that this girl comes into his life.
It was, speaking of the cinematography, one of the things I thought was really fantastic was just how noir the film feels in its most sensitive moments.
Right.
The way the pieces I found myself looking forward to the most, the sequences I was looking forward to the most were the, were the night sequences with Scraps in the gym, when they had these, or the early morning sequences where they played with really sharp light, these hard shadows that played so beautifully across these just iconic faces. I mean, Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood, their faces have so much character just etched in them that when you see this light just, strike across their face, I found myself really moved by them. It is truly photographic.
Yeah, it's really stunning. And this is a film. I mean, Clint Eastwood. Anyone who's kind of listened to any stories about how Clint Eastwood makes a movie knows that he is just so fast. He's a speedy filmmaker, and not to the point like he's rushing. He knows what he wants. When he gets it, he moves on. He doesn't keep doing take after take trying to, I mean, he's like the antithesis to David Fincher, right?
Yeah.
The way that he does this. He shot this in 38 days, and 5 of those days were half days. There was no overtime. One of the producers said on day 1, the call sheet had a 10 a.m. call time, and that means like when everyone's supposed to get to set. And the 10:15 first shot is when they were supposed to get their first shot. And you never see that. 15 minutes to basically set up and get a first shot. That's like an unheard of, ridiculously short amount of time to actually get prepped to get your first shot off. But he said that by 10:03, they already had their first shot and they were moved to the new camera position by 10:08. Wow. So he is efficient. He just knows what he needs and he just goes in and gets it.
That's fantastic. Well, he's an old man. He's very efficient. I think I've lost you. I think you're just not there. I'm going to keep talking, though. Anything? No? Are you still there?
I hear you now.
Oh, yeah, you went away.
Whoa, you're way behind.
I'll pause. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay, are we caught up?
Are we caught up?
I think we're caught up.
Count 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go. Okay. That was really weird. I heard a snap, like in the middle of your word. It's like you flipped a switch.
Wow. I don't know what to say about that.
I don't either.
All right. I don't even remember where we were. I called Clint Eastwood an old man, very efficient. And then there was nothing after that.
Okay.
Okay. Where do you want to go from there? Let's do... so you already talked about the DP.
I think...
music. Wait. Okay. Yeah. The music was amazing.
Yeah.
The music was really great. I was surprised. I was super surprised to see Clint Eastwood had done the music. I found like it jumped a little bit all over the place tonally. At one point it's several points throughout the film it's this lilting kind of guitar, and I thought it was super moving, and not incredibly consistent.
No.
From scene to scene, it didn't scream this is a unified score to me, but it really worked for the pictures on screen.
Yeah, that's something I find with Clint Eastwood's music generally. I think he works his music really well to fit the scenes, but they don't necessarily feel like a cohesive whole.
Right.
And sometimes I have a problem with that. This is one of those times where I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. I thought he was really, really great.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was really surprised to see him having done the score to this. Didn't expect it. Who else? Production design.
Yeah, production design. Henry Bumstead is a name that's been around forever. I think he just creates a great look to this rundown gym and just the whole world of this boxing within this kind of dark, shadowy world.
Yeah. I felt like it's one of those things. It was just sparse enough to feel legitimate.
Yes.
And in terms of like just general set decoration, Richard Goddard, like I found myself actually thinking, this makes sense to me. This feels right. This gym feels right to me. This is a well-trod place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
then Joel Cox was the editor. He's worked with Eastwood for a very long time. And he was nominated for an Oscar for this. I think rightfully so. I think it's cut really well. The pacing of it works nicely in the quieter scenes. It definitely works. It has a much faster pace in the boxing scenes. I think that it flows very smoothly all the way through because of Joel's editing.
The boxing scenes are interesting to me because I never once was inspired to compare this to Rocky.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? I never once had that sense that this is a boxing movie and it's supposed to have a certain look and feel.
Right.
And I thought that was really great. It still gave me the excitement, the thrill of the of the sport, and yet it was approached with I guess a greater sense of elegance in the ring. That these women were, it approached it with I think a feminine hand. It felt really softer. In terms of the approach to cutting, it was not as fast. It was not as jarring, I think. Not as adrenaline kind of thrust.
Yeah, it didn't feel like you needed to have that Raging Bull editing style that was just so in your face that it actually felt it felt just more dramatic. The whole thing felt more dramatic, and maybe that's because it wasn't trying to be just the next great sports movie, kind of a la Rocky.
Yeah.
It really was just a story of these characters that happened to be in the world of boxing.
Yeah, and that's something you don't know until the end. That this is not the next great sports movie, and that's still
right.
We're talking about it an hour later. I'm still blown away by that twist. Anything else before we talk about how it did?
I don't know. I think that's it. Other than we haven't mentioned that it is based on the book or some of the stories from the book, Ropeburn's Stories from the Corner, which is by FX Toole, which is the pen name of boxing trainer Jerry Boyd, who wrote this. Paul Haggis adapted the story and pulled some other elements of it from the book, and then and FX Toole ended up writing, I think, another novel called Pound for Pound that was released posthumously. He died in 2002, and I guess AMC is actually looking at adapting the stories from Pound for Pound into a dramatic series. So we'll see if that actually happens. Yeah, set in the world of boxing.
AMC is doing such good work lately. That'll be interesting.
It could be an interesting show. I mean, if it's this type of story, I think that it could be a really interesting world to look into.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did it do?
This film did really well for itself. I mean, if you look at boxing movies, this is actually the fourth highest grossing one, only behind Rocky, Rocky III, and Rocky IV, which is pretty interesting. Rocky IV is actually the top of the heap, which surprises me, but I guess that's how things go. It definitely is more popular than a lot of other boxing movies that are out there. This film cost $30 million to make, another $30 million for all the prints and advertising. So $60 million is what it went into, and that's adjusted for today's dollars, about $73.8 million. This film ended up making at the box office just over about $100.5 million, and internationally made $131.5 million. All told, it did pretty well for itself. And when you actually look at the adjusted profit per finished minute, it ended up making about $1.5 million per finished minute adjusted.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
That is, and so the awards.
Yeah.
What are the awards that it ended up winning?
For the Oscars, it won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, and Best Supporting Actor. Clint Eastwood was nominated for Best Actor. He didn't win. That went to for Ray. It went to Jamie Foxx. And then Best Adapted Screenplay, Paul Haggis was nominated, and Best Film Editing was nominated. And then, a slew of other awards. This film was very well received, very high marks from the critics, from the audiences. I think this was just an overall very well received film.
Well, it was a beautiful film, and as somebody who had not seen it these last 11 years, it was a treat, and I call it a gift to be able to sit down and really enjoy this film in one sitting without being spoiled. I felt like it just came out.
I am so thrilled that you managed to not be spoiled. That's the fear I have with films like this when it has such a huge twist. of having heard that there either is a twist or what the twist actually is. So I'm glad that somehow you managed to avoid that.
Well, yeah. I mean, and now that I know at the end she does in fact see dead people. Let's say we rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, everybody. You can see our stack rankings of awesome movies that we've talked about. And you should sign up and friend us, and then we'll see if our movies match your movies. And then we'll sing a song about it. Just like Neil Patrick Harris. Hashtag Oscar nod.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right, $1 Million Baby or Kind Hearts and Coronets?
$1 Million Baby.
Absolutely. $1 Million Baby or 12 Monkeys?
$1 Million Baby.
Yeah. I love 12 Monkeys, but $1 Million Baby hits me more emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Getting tough now. $1 Million Baby or The Exorcist?
$1 Million Baby.
Yeah. I think I'd do $1 Million Baby. $1 Million Baby? Oh. Or Brazil.
Oh, wow. See, now I'm trying to meter my emotional response to $1 Million Baby.
Right.
Since I just saw it, I am still I'm in the afterglow.
Right. That's how it goes often with films after we talk about them.
Yeah.
It's easy to dismiss films that we talked about several years ago.
But in this case, I'm going to use my best judgment. I think I'm going to say Brazil.
I am too.
All right.
That's a hard one, though.
That was hard. That was definitely
$1 Million Baby or Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
$1 Million Baby.
Really?
I'm a 7.
Close Encounters. I don't know. I'm a little wishy-washy on this one, but I feel like I should pick Close Encounters.
But how much? If you're a 2 or higher, then it goes Close Encounters. If it's 2 or lower, then it's Close Encounters. If it's a 3 or higher, we have to rock paper scissors.
I'm not quite sure I understand your numbering scheme.
Well, it's just a weighted scale. It's a teeter-totter.
Yeah, right.
So if I'm a 7 and you're a 3, then we're balanced.
Oh, I see. That's where the 3 comes in.
Yeah.
Man, Close Encounters. I mean, one of the best sci-fis out there. I love that film. $1 Million Baby certainly has more of the emotional draw to it.
We have gotten in trouble for misranking Close Encounters in the past. We have gotten email that we have not done justice by Close Encounters in the past.
And I'm feeling like I need to go with Close Encounters on this one. I just feel like I love $1 Million Baby, but I feel like Close Encounters is like just over my life, the one that will. That doesn't even make sense. They're both going to always stick with me.
I'll give it to you. You sound like a 2.
Yes,
a 2 or lower.
All right, I do.
All
so
right.
Does that mean Close Encounters?
Yeah.
Okay. I get confused with this numbering scheme of yours.
No, it'll come to you. You'll get it.
Okay. $1 Million Baby. Okay. Or The Matrix.
Oh. $1 Million Baby, I think.
God, The Matrix is
pretty
amazing.
Yeah, I know, but there is nowhere in The Matrix where I got that third act twist that affected me so.
Well,
there
I'll
was
agree.
nothing in the Matrix. The Matrix was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was a pinnacle of filmmaking of its style, and I was excited and jubilant and adrenaline rushed. But when I finished watching $1 Million Baby, I felt like I had connected with cinema in a new way. That was a terrific example of the use of the art and craft.
All right. You sold me. $1 Million Baby it is. $1 Million Baby or Aliens?
I feel like my logic holds.
For $1 Million Baby?
Yeah.
But Aliens, man.
I know, man.
Okay, I'll give you $1 Million Baby. $1 Million Baby or Up in the Air? I would do $1 Million Baby.
Yeah.
All right. Number 16. Out of 173, straight to the top 20.
Straight to the top 20. That's a good place for this film to be.
I think so. I feel a little guilty about it being above Aliens, but I'm going to be okay with it.
I think you need to be okay with it.
I am okay with it.
This was, Aliens was a great film, but there was no single performance in Aliens that touched me as much as any three of the top performances in $1 Million Baby. I
know. It's like my 15-year-old self rating Aliens.
I know. But your 15-year-old self might have been a little bit of a dick.
Hey, now.
Wait, what? Don't worry. Mine was too.
Weren't they all?
Oh, goodness. Okay, and so this was, we didn't even, so this is our surprise series. So we're, once again, not talking about where we're going next week.
That's right. This is part
of
the fun little challenge, the Guess the Connection series.
That's
so
right.
This and Syriana, so far, are the two films in this challenge. What sort of connection could they have? It's up to you, dear listener, to track it down.
What did we say? People, how are people supposed to let us know?
Well, we're not going to let people comment until week 4 when we announce what the fourth film is. Yeah, the fourth film, because there's no way they're going to know. Then it's a race. Once that fourth film, once we announce what it is, you are going to have to guess as quickly as you can to figure out what the connection is between the 4 films.
Man, I'm glad we figured this out. I didn't know about the race part. That makes everything clear.
Yeah, that's right. So once that post goes up, we gotta be on it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, I gotta go to bed.
All right, I'm gonna go practice my left hook.
Okay, mine has a position. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's not quite as much about the film. Subject: women should not box. Period.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't feel that the film connected on an emotional level, and that it was more like watching stock characters in action. Hilary Swank is very good, but her character moves from amateur boxer to championship contender while showing practically nothing in between. Clint failed to impress me with his performance, and I'm a Clint fan, and Morgan Freeman continues to be highly overrated. The second half drags considerably, and I felt the whole third act to be very manipulative.
Ouch.
But
he doesn't say anything about his opinion
of women
why
boxing.
Women should box.
Yeah, apparently that was the first point, and then they moved on.
Just to draw the reader in.
Yeah, that's right. What's yours?
Mine is a 1-star. Warning, not a boxing movie, by Peter Kill. I assume that's how you say it. There's absolutely no vowels in it. There is absolutely no indication on the box, either textually or otherwise, that this is anything but an upbeat boxing movie. I purchased it thinking Swank's character would overcome adversity to rise to the top, not unlike Rocky, not become a quadriplegic and die. If you are looking for a feel-good boxing movie, do not buy this. I bought it thinking it would be a nice way to spend the evening with my girlfriend, only to be horrified and embarrassed. We wish we could forget the whole thing, especially the scene in which she tries to commit suicide by biting her own tongue off. Thanks, but no thanks, Clint. I suspect the marketing of this movie was deliberately deceptive. As for the acting, I don't understand what all the raves are about. Eastwood is simply Eastwood. He's okay. This is 2 different movies in one. It completely changes about halfway through, and it turns into something you won't want to see if you're expecting the girl to succeed. Ouch. Yeah. Well, not a happy person.
Amazon. Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.